But there you go, guys. There is the trash compactor diorama. Now let me show you how it collapses in on itself. Hey everybody, it's David from Red Wagon Dioramas, and I've got another Black Series diorama video for you today. So I'm going to show you guys one of my dioramas that I have not shown on the channel yet. Now I built this diorama, I think it was 2 summers ago, and I've had it here on display on my cube shelf, but I didn't have it quite finished to where I wanted, so I just finished it up last weekend. So I've got it right here in front of me on the table. I'm going to put it back into the cube, put it together piece by piece so you guys can see how it goes together. And I also have some footage of when I was making this thing. I did film a lot on this one. Please, if you have any questions about this diorama build, any of the techniques or materials, etc., just leave me a comment below and I will definitely respond. Do me a favor and hit the like button right now for me. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. All right, let's get into it. As with many of my Black Series dioramas, I get inspiration from the figures themselves. Early on in the Blue Line, Hasbro released both Han and Luke in the Stormtrooper outfits from the Death Star scene. So I had those figures, and I didn't really have a place to put them in my collection other than just kind of standing there. Then a couple years ago, Hasbro re-released a new Luke, the red box Luke, where he had some weathering on him, and he's got the wet hair. So that really sealed the deal for me, inspiring me to make this diorama, because I was like, I'm going to use that wet hair Luke, and I put Han in there, and I got Chewie and Leia, and I can do this. It's going to be cool. So that's how I started. I knew the 4 figures I wanted to use, I knew the scene I wanted to make, and I knew my limitations as far as size.
Garbage chute is a really wonderful idea. What an incredible smell you've discovered.
I really looked at all those scenes in the trash compactor, and I figured out, okay, what do the walls look like? What does the door look like? What does the trash look like? And I got some ideas there. One of the first things I did that inspired me on this project was actually making the tentacles for the dianoga.
Look, did you see that?
Now these little tentacles here are bendy wire tails from a Halloween rat toy. So you know those big like skeleton rats that Target sometimes carries, or Walmart. As far as painting these, I did prime them with that Corax spray primer by Citadel. I think I used Citadel Bugman's Glow on these. And then some brown and black washes, maybe even some green. I just kind of played with it until I kind of liked the the color and the tone of it. And then of course tried wrapping around the figure, just to kind of a mock-up test. So here's a look at the rear door of the trash compactor, and I'm really happy how this came out. Now this is made with foam board base, so I've got that first layer of foam board. Here's a side view. I got some styrofoam and some other padding and wiring and stuff on the back. I'll show you that in a minute. But basically the first panel I cut to size so that it would fit right in that cube. I did the vertical lines just by scoring the foam board with I think I used a pencil or something with a ruler, and just kind of made a groove in the surface. And for the horizontal pieces, I cut these narrow pieces of foam board out and glued them onto the surface of the first base layer. And that's how I got the basic framework of the wall. The door here is a 3D printed door. I got this from Corey at Sandcrawler Customs. I think I got the door like well before I started this project, like 4 years ago when Corey first got into printing. So I painted up the door, and then I ended up gluing it to the back of the panel. Most of the glue I use in here is hot glue, just because it's so convenient and it cures so quickly. Sometimes I'll use super glue for some of this stuff too. I ended up drilling out the little circle pieces that were in the 3D print because they had some actually filament details in here for the light fixtures, but I drilled those out so I could put the actual LEDs right in there. Those LEDs came from a toy lightsaber, like a cheap dollar store lightsaber. Had a series of red LEDs in it, and I just opened that up and stole the electronics and soldered in just a battery and a switch. So now I have a little switch up here on top. Turn that on, the lights come on. Pretty cool. I like that a lot. All the paints I used were the typical, craft acrylic paints from Michael's or Walmart. I have a whole video I posted on my channel where I painted these walls, so you can see that for a little bit more detail. I'll just include a clip of it here. All the dirt and debris you see accumulating on top of the horizontal rails, those are coffee grounds that I harvested from some old K-cups. I'd have my cup of coffee, my K-cup, and usually that'd go in the trash. Well, I saved like 20 or 30 of them, and I cut them all open. I used the wet coffee grounds with some spray glue and just kind of put them on here. And I think it looks really cool as like a real fine granular kind of debris look. So that was something fun, and that was just an idea I wanted to try, and it came out great. So yeah, if you're looking for some fine dirt debris, try coffee grounds. Works pretty good. Smells good too. I did put a couple of pieces from the IKEA shelf on the top and the bottom just to give this some stability and rigidity. And then the styrofoam here was just to pad it out so I had room for the wiring and everything. Now, I can't remember exactly my thinking here, but I ended up using the actual IKEA wood divider piece from the cube shelf. So like this is the, the actual wood piece from the shelf. And I just glued horizontal strips of foam board right on there. An important thing, of course, is that this panel lines up with the side panels, right? So when I made these side panels, obviously I did it so that the grooves match up, so that you can have that, that appearance of the walls closing in and sliding in. So there's a little bit of coordination and precision involved when you're doing these cuts and everything. I knew that these boards would be the perfect height and nice and rigid and stable, so that if I wanted to adjust it, squeeze the walls in or out, they wouldn't fall over. So I believe that was my thinking why I did it this way, and it ended up working out really well. Now, as far as the floor to the diorama, this was something that I put a lot of thought into. I really wanted this diorama to have actual moving walls. Like, I wanted to be able to set it up narrow or wide in this cube. I also wanted the figures to be knee deep in the debris, so I knew I wanted to build up the floor a little bit. So how could I do that with with the debris field kind of floating around these figures, but I also wanted it to be movable. And so what I came up with was kind of this interlocking floor that could move like this. I basically sketched out the scalloped kind of shape of the debris inside the room and cut a whole bunch of 1/2-inch foam board pieces that would interlock with each other like teeth, and basically could slide in and out. So I can show you guys a finished look of what the floor is now. But basically what this is, if I flip it upside down, these are two independent pieces that can move together. It's tight. Like, I don't want to pull too hard, I might break something. But basically this whole thing can collapse in on itself and go down to about 8 or 9 inches wide, or it can spread out to be the full 13 inches wide. So I can get a couple different scenes here, the way I want to set up the figures. I'm an engineer in my real job, so it's fun for me to design something like this and build it. Gets my creative juices going. Now, to hold these together, I do have a wooden dowel that goes down the back corners. It helps them stand upright and stay in line with each other. Once I had the basic structure kind of glued together, I laid a piece of fabric felt down over it and I glued that down. The black was important as far as the aesthetic look of it. So if there's any gaps in the debris field, you would just see black and it wouldn't really be that noticeable to you. I suppose you could use cotton or any other fabric, but what I had was felt, and I thought it would be a little more robust and it would take the glue well. So that's what I used. Once I had the felt glued down, then it was just placing all this debris. Now, a lot of the bigger pieces in here are from like old electronics, and like I took apart a computer, I took apart an old camera, all kinds of random odds and ends that are in here that I just thought would look kind of interesting and would blend in with the scale. There's some bigger pieces in here, there's some smaller stuff. I did paint a lot of this debris, just random colors. I did some browns and greens and whites and grays, just to give it a little bit of color. I was trying to go off the colors in the movie, obviously. The main debris that you see here, all these little tiny pieces everywhere, were all hand cut from pieces of XPS foam, just little scraps and offcuts that I had. I probably spent an hour or more just cutting up all these pieces. There's probably a couple hundred pieces in there. Then I just doused them all in paint, and gray paint, so I got them all coated gray, let that dry. And eventually I just kind of had this gray confetti that I was able to use and put all over the place. Each individual piece of foam and debris here was placed individually by me, painstakingly, meticulously. I think it was over an hour, maybe an hour and a half of putting all these pieces in. Little dab of glue, figuring out where it fits. Kind of like a big Tetris puzzle, fitting everything together. A lot of fun, but it did get tiring after a while. End result, though, really cool. Said, let me show you how it all goes together in the shelf. All right, so I've got the back panel. I'm just gonna slide that straight in. You're gonna see it's pretty tight. I cut it so it just barely fits. So there's the back panel. Then I've got the side panel. There is a top and bottom here. Again, the horizontal grooves have to line up right. So this one goes here on the right side. Got my other panel. This is gonna go on the left side. I do have a light fixture up in here, so I gotta be a little careful where I'm placing these. So there you see it. You can see the back panel and the two side panels. Some nice detail. You see all those coffee grounds everywhere, the paint job. I didn't talk about the paint too much because, again, I have that other video. I watered down a lot of paints, greens, yellows, browns, reds, and just kind of let it run down the side of these walls until it had kind of a look that I thought was close to the film. Okay, now I'm going to replace the debris field here. Just going to slide in there like that. I'm going to spread it apart here. See how the floor has all those openings? That's where I'm going to stick the figures. So they're all going to be standing in here and they're going to be knee deep. And I just have that painted black here for now. I wasn't sure how to treat the outside edge. What I ended up doing was putting a couple tentacles here just to show the, the dianoga underwater. All right, first we're going to put Chewie in here. In the film, he's kind of in this back corner, so that's why I put him back here. See how he slides right down in there. Got him reaching up against the wall. Then we got Princess Leia. She can kind of go in here, and she's indignant and upset at Han for shooting his blaster. Can't believe he would do something so reckless. And Han is right here. He's like, listen, princess, you got us into this mess. And then we've got Luke. And then I've got a couple of these tentacles. So I'm just gonna kind of feed it in here. Well, they sell these rats with different sizes and different tails, so I have a couple long ones and a couple shorter ones. But there you go, guys. There is the trash compactor diorama.
The walls are moving! Don't just stand there, try and brace it with something!
So I had to pull out the figures just so I can demonstrate, the teeth coming together. Otherwise, it compresses in on the figures and it only goes so far. One limitation to the design, because once it closes in, you got to kind of put the figures up on top of everything.
Get on top!
I can't!
Where could he be?
But here's what it looks like if you want to collapse it in. I'm just going to grab here. Check that out. There you go. Whoops. Look at that. So there's a compressed version of the diorama. It's gone from 13 inches wide to about 9 inches wide. All right, guys, so there you go. There's my trash compactor diorama. I'm pretty excited about how it came out, and I honestly have been wanting to do a video on it for a while. I just hadn't tweaked a couple final things until last weekend, so here you go. So if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you enjoy videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next from my Black Series collection. And here's some other videos up here you can watch. Till next time, may the Force be with you. Bye.